Welcome to the world of science fiction stories, and don't forget to like, share and subscribe my channel. Enjoy the listening. The Galactic Empire panicked when they saw human Warship's true power. The vastness of space stretched before the Defiance, Earth's first true interstellar vessel. Captain James Wilson stood on the bridge, his weathered face illuminated by the glow of countless stars through the viewing port. After 3 weeks of travel using the newly developed jump drive, they had ventured farther than any human in history. Status report, Wilson said to his navigation officer, Lisa Williams. Williams looked up from her console, her brow furrowed. Captain, something's not right. According to our star charts, we should be in empty space, but sensors are picking up significant traffic ahead, artificial structures, and 2 massive ones. Wilson moved to her station, studying the readings with growing concern. This wasn't supposed to be here. Our mission was simple: test the jump drive by reaching Proxima Centauri and return home. Instead, we've apparently jumped much farther than intended. Full stop. Power down non-essential systems, he ordered. Let's not announce ourselves until we know what we're dealing with. The Defiance slowed to a halt, hanging silently among the stars, as the crew tried to make sense of their situation. The ship was impressive by Earth standards, 300 meters of advanced technology and innovative design, but Wilson suddenly felt very small across the sector. In the gleaming command center of the Imperial Dreadnought, Inevitable Victory, Admiral Vex received a report from one of his underlings. The tall, blue-skinned officer barely glanced at the junior lieutenant who approached. Admiral, our outer sensors detected an anomalous energy signature in Sector 7. It appears to be a small vessel of unknown configuration. Vex waved a four-fingered hand dismissively. Probably another smuggler or trader trying to avoid tariffs. Send a patrol to investigate, but don't bother me with such trivial matters again. Yes, Admiral, the lieutenant said with a bow before retreating. Vex returned his attention to the holographic map displaying the vast Galactic Empire. For over 3,000 years, the Empire had ruled the known galaxy with absolute authority. Thousands of species and millions of worlds bowed to imperial rule. The addition of yet another insignificant trading vessel was hardly worthy of his attention. Back on the Defiance, the crew worked frantically to understand their predicament. Captain, I'm picking up communications traffic. Lots of it, reported Communications Officer Tom Baker. The computer can't translate most of it, but there are definite patterns suggesting organized civilization. Wilson nodded grimly. So much for being alone in the universe. We need more information before we contact, Williams shouted, 3 vessels approaching rapidly from the large structure at coordinates 227x45. On the main screen, 3 sleek ships appeared, growing larger as they approached. They moved with precision that spoke of advanced technology and training. Can we jump back home? Wilson asked. His engineer, Chief Engineer Alan Ramirez, shook his head. No, sir. The drive needs 12 hours to recharge after our last jump. Wilson took a deep breath. First contact scenario, they trained for this theoretically, but no one had expected it to happen so soon or so far from home. Open a channel. Universal greeting package. Let's try to be diplomatic. Meanwhile, Patrol Commander Drez of the Imperial Security Forces was having a routine day until the unknown ship appeared on his scanners. His orders were simple: intercept, identify, and, if necessary, board any unauthorized vessels. Vessel is small, Captain. Primitive design, his sensor officer reported. No indication of standard drive systems or Imperial registry beacons. Drez frowned. Pirates using outdated tech to avoid detection, or perhaps a new species. The second possibility made him sit straighter. The Empire had not encountered a genuinely new spacefaring race in over a century. They're transmitting something, sir, audio and visual data, but not on any standard frequencies. Put it through, Drez ordered. The message was incomprehensible but clearly artificial. This is no pirate trick. Order them to power down and prepare for boarding, Dres commanded. Standard protocols for first contact scenarios on the Defiance were now in effect. Baker's console lit up. Captain, they're responding. I can't understand the language, but the computer is working on it. They're transmitting some kind of mathematical sequence, followed by, I think it's instructions. Wilson leaned forward. What kind of instructions? Based on the imagery, they want us to shut down our engines and let them board us, Baker replied, his voice tense. Wilson exchanged glances with his first officer, Commander Diana Roberts. They both knew what was at stake. Humanity's first encounter with alien life could not begin with surrender. Send this message: we are the Starship Defiance from Earth. We come in peace and wish to establish diplomatic relations. We respectfully decline boarding at this time, but are willing to meet representatives at a neutral location. Baker transmitted the message. While the bridge crew held their breath, the response was immediate and clear. Even without translation, the three alien ships spread out in a classic flanking formation and accelerated toward them. Evasive action, Wilson ordered. Ramirez, give me everything you can from the maneuvering thrusters. The Defiance banked hard, accelerating away from the approaching vessels. What the human ship lacked in raw power, it made up for in agility. The design had been optimized for rapid course changes that defied conventional space tactics. Dres stared in disbelief as the primitive-looking vessel performed a maneuver that should have been impossible for its apparent technology level. His ships, the pride of the Imperial Patrol Fleet, suddenly found themselves chasing a target that refused to behave as expected. Sir, they're outmaneuvering us, his tactical officer exclaimed. Impossible, Dres snapped. Lock tractors and bring them in. The patrol ships fired their tractor beams, invisible forces reaching out to seize the human vessel, but the Defiance wasn't where it should have been. Somehow, the human captain had anticipated the attack and initiated a roll that carried them just beyond the tractor beam's effective range. They can't have known about tractor technology, Dres muttered. This is concerning. They tried to grab us with some kind of energy beam, Williams reported. Based on the field dynamics, it's designed to hold ships in place. Wilson allowed himself a small smile. Good thing we practiced those evasion drills. Roberts, prepare the emergency jump protocol, Wilson ordered. Roberts looked alarmed. Sir, emergency jumping without proper calculations could be riskier than waiting to see what these folks have planned for us, Wilson finished. Plot a short jump, just enough to break contact. As the alien vessels regrouped for another pass, the Defiance suddenly flared with energy before Dres could issue new orders. The human ship vanished in a flash of light, leaving nothing but empty space where it had been. In his ornate office on the Imperial capital world, Admiral Vex received the patrol report with growing irritation that turned to concern. You're telling me that an unknown vessel with apparently primitive design outmaneuvered our patrol ships and then disappeared? He asked the holographic image of a very uncomfortable Commander Dres. Yes, Admiral. They used some kind of jump technology we couldn't track. Vex leaned back in his chair, his mind racing. New species were supposed to be simple to integrate into the Empire, they were supposed to be awed by Imperial might, grateful for Imperial protection, and quick to submit to Imperial rule. They were not supposed to embarrass Imperial patrol ships. Find that vessel, Vex ordered. His voice turned cold. I want to know everything about these humans, and prepare a formal first contact team. It seems we have a situation that requires my personal attention. As Dres' image faded, Vex turned to look out at the gleaming spires of the Imperial capital for the first time in many cycles. He felt something unexpected, uncertainty. Somewhere out there, a ship that had no right to challenge Imperial authority had done exactly that, and Vex couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning. 2 standard cycles had passed since the unexpected encounter with the unknown vessel. Commander Trell stood at attention aboard the Imperial flagship, Dominion, his spine rigid as Admiral Vex paced before him. Commander, this situation has drawn the attention of the Imperial Council itself, Vex said, his blue skin darkening with frustration. This human vessel made our patrol ships look like children's toys. The Empire cannot allow such an embarrassment to stand. Trell nodded, his expression serious. I understand, Admiral. My battle cruiser is ready for immediate deployment. Good. You will take the Dominion and 2 support vessels to find the ship, capture it if possible, and destroy it if necessary, but bring me answers. Vex handed him a data crystal. These are the coordinates of their last known position. Intelligence suggests they may be operating near the outer rim. Trell accepted the crystal with a formal bow. The Empire will prevail, Admiral, he said as he left the Admiral's presence. Fell allowed himself a small smile. This mission would surely lead to promotion. After all, how difficult could it be to catch one primitive vessel? The Defiance drifted silently in the shadow of a gas giant, its systems running on minimal power. On the bridge, Captain Wilson studied the star maps they had managed to download from unsecured Imperial networks. So, we've jumped into the middle of some massive galactic empire, he summarized while looking at his assembled officers. An empire that, as far as we can tell, doesn't know Earth exists, or didn't until we showed up. First Officer Roberts pointed to a section of the map. Based on the communication traffic we've intercepted, this entire region is under Imperial control. Hundreds, maybe thousands, of inhabited star systems, and not all of them are happy about it. Communications Officer Baker added, I've been monitoring their channels. There's a planet called Loraxia in the next system that's in active rebellion against Imperial rule. Wilson considered this information carefully. Their emergency jump had carried them even farther from Earth, and the drive needed major repairs before they could attempt a return journey. Our priority has to be protecting Earth, he said firmly. This empire is clearly expansionist, and they now know humans exist. We need to understand what we're dealing with and, if possible, find allies. Captain Williams spoke up. Sensors are detecting a large energy signature approaching this system. Based on what we've learned about Imperial drive signatures, it's at least one major warship. Wilson straightened. They found us faster than I expected. Options: we could hide deeper in the system, suggested Roberts, or we could check out this rebellious planet, countered Engineer Ramirez. The Imperials would be less likely to look for us there, and we might find some friends. After a moment's thought, Wilson nodded. Set course for Loraxia. Let's see if there's more to this empire than bullying patrol ships. The planet Loraxia hung like a blue-green jewel in space, its surface partially obscured by smoke rising from multiple locations. As the Defiance approached cautiously, the crew could see the unmistakable signs of conflict. 3 Imperial vessels in orbit, reported Williams. They're bombarding the surface with some kind of energy weapon. Wilson watched the scene with growing concern. The Imperial ships were systematically destroying what appeared to be cities with no regard for civilian casualties. This isn't a military operation, Roberts said quietly. It's punishment. Wilson's jaw tightened. Get me more information about what's happening down there. Baker worked his console rapidly. From what I can piece together, the Loraxians refused to increase their resource quotas to the Empire. When they protested, the Empire labeled it rebellion and dispatched these ships to restore order. For long moments, Wilson stared at the screen. His orders were clear: avoid confrontation, gather information, and return to Earth. Interfering in an alien conflict was expressly forbidden. But as he watched another city erupt in flames, he found himself making a different calculation. If this is how the Empire treats its own people, he said, what would they do to Earth? Battle stations, he ordered, we're going to show these Imperials that humans don't stand by while innocents are slaughtered. Commander Trell was supervising the punishment of Loraxia when his tactical officer called for attention. Commander, unknown vessel approaching at high speed, configuration matches the human ship from the reports. Trell smiled coldly. Fortune favors the Empire. Deploy interceptors and prepare boarding parties, I want that ship intact. He watched as his orders were carried out. Fighter craft launched from the 3 Imperial vessels. The human ship was outnumbered and outgunned, this would be over quickly. "Captain, they've launched fighters," Williams reported. 30 small craft, heavily armed, on intercept course. Wilson nodded calmly. "Activate defense protocols, Alpha through Delta, target the lead Imperial vessel's weapons systems only, we want to disable, not destroy." The crew exchanged glances. The defense protocols had never been tested in actual combat. As the Imperial fighters closed in, the Defiance suddenly blossomed with energy. Multiple ports opened along its hull, revealing systems that had remained hidden until now. The first wave of fighters fired their weapons, expecting to hit the small human vessel. Instead, their energy blasts dissipated harmlessly against an invisible barrier surrounding the Defiance's shields, holding at 92%, as reported by Ramirez. "Countermeasures ready," Wilson ordered. "Fire." What happened next would be debated in Imperial tactical minds for years to come. The seemingly outmatched human vessel unleashed a precision barrage that systematically disabled the fighter's propulsion systems without destroying a single craft. On the bridge of the Dominion, Trell watched in disbelief as his fighters drifted helplessly. Disabled but intact. "Impossible," he whispered. "Target that ship with main batteries." Before his gunners could comply, the Defiance accelerated with shocking speed, evading the heavy weapons fire. It approached the first Imperial vessel and fired again. Surgical strikes disabled the warship's main cannons, leaving it unable to continue bombarding the planet. "Sir, our weapons are offline," came the panicked report from the first ship. "They're targeting our bombardment systems," noted Trell's tactical officer with professional admiration and remarkable precision. Before Trell could issue new orders, the human ship had repeated the process with the second Imperial vessel. Now 2 of his 3 ships hung in space, unable to continue their mission but otherwise functional. "All vessels, concentrate fire," Trell ordered, but the human ship moved with unnatural agility, seeming to anticipate each attack before it came. "Final target locked," Williams announced on the Defiance. Wilson nodded. "Fire." The Dominion shuddered as its main weapons were systematically disabled by the human vessel's precision strikes. All Imperial bombardment capabilities were neutralized, confirmed by Roberts. Wilson opened a channel to the surface. "People of Loraxia, this is Captain James Wilson of the Earth vessel Defiance. The Imperial ships can no longer attack your planet. I suggest you take this opportunity to negotiate better terms." Without waiting for a response, he turned to his navigator. "Williams, get us out of here. Random jump, maximum speed." As Imperial reinforcements began appearing at the edge of the system, the Defiance vanished in a flash of energy, leaving behind 3 humiliated Imperial warships and a planet full of astonished Loraxians. In his private chambers, Admiral Vex reviewed Commander Trell's report with mounting horror. The human vessel had not only engaged superior Imperial forces, but had done so with technology that should have been centuries beyond their apparent development level. "Play the combat footage again," he ordered his aide. The holographic display showed the Defiance moving with impossible precision, its weapons striking exactly, and only, what they aimed at. Most disturbing of all was the ship's apparent shield technology, which had no equivalent in Imperial defense systems. "There's no way that's a human warship," Vex muttered. "It can't be." But the evidence was irrefutable. Somewhere beyond Imperial space was a civilization with technology that could challenge the Empire's military superiority, technology housed in a ship smaller than a standard Imperial cruiser. For the first time in his long career, Admiral Vex felt something he had never expected: fear. 6 months had passed since the Defiance returned to Earth with its incredible news. Humanity was not alone in the universe, and their first neighbors were a vast, aggressive empire that spanned thousands of worlds. The revelation had united Earth's nations in an unprecedented way, as governments and scientists worked together to prepare for possible contact, or conflict. Today marked the next chapter in this new era. The Concordia, Earth's first purpose-built diplomatic vessel, glided silently through space toward the coordinates provided by Imperial representatives. Twice the size of the Defiance, the Concordia combined elegant design with hidden strength. Its hull gleamed in the light of distant stars as it approached the massive space station that served as the Empire's diplomatic outpost. Ambassador Marcus stood on the bridge, his formal attire a stark contrast to the practical uniforms of the crew. Captain Wilson, now serving as military advisor to the diplomatic mission, stood at his side. "Impressive," Marcus commented, looking at the Imperial station. The structure stretched for kilometers, with sweeping arches and gleaming towers that spoke of wealth and power. "They certainly want us to be impressed by their grandeur." Wilson nodded. "It's psychological, make the other side feel small before negotiations even begin. Then it's fortunate that humans have never been easily intimidated by size," Marcus replied with a smile. "Open a channel, Captain," the communications officer complied, and Marcus spoke clearly. "Imperial Diplomatic Station, this is Ambassador Marcus of Earth aboard the starship Concordia. We are here at the invitation of the Imperial Council for diplomatic discussions." The response was immediate. "Earth vessel Concordia, you are cleared to dock at Bay 12. The Emperor's representatives await your arrival." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "The Emperor himself? I wasn't told he would be present." "A recent development, it seems," Wilson said cautiously. "The incidents with the Defiance must have attracted high-level attention, all the more reason to tread carefully." "Let's not keep them waiting," Marcus replied. The Imperial Diplomatic Chamber was designed to emphasize the Empire's power and history. Ancient battle flags hung from high ceilings, while stone-faced guards in ornate armor stood at attention along the walls. At the far end, seated on an elevated platform, was Emperor Revix Aex, ruler of the Galactic Empire. Unlike many of his subjects, the Emperor appeared almost human, distinguished only by his metallic gold skin and eyes with vertical pupils like a cat's. He studied the Earth delegation with open curiosity. "So these are the humans who have caused such a stir in my realm," he said, his voice surprisingly gentle. "You are smaller than I expected." Ambassador Marcus bowed respectfully, but not subserviently. "Your Imperial Majesty, I bring greetings from Earth and thanks for this opportunity to establish diplomatic relations." The Emperor waved a hand dismissively. Yes, relations. Tell me, Ambassador, how does a species with no prior contact with the Empire develop such interesting technology? Our analysts are quite puzzled by your achievements." Marcus smiled politely. "Evolution takes many paths, Your Majesty. Humans have always been resourceful and innovative, we developed along lines that suited our particular circumstances." "Indeed," the Emperor leaned forward. "And these circumstances produced a vessel capable of disabling 3 Imperial warships without destruction." "Most fascinating." Wilson tensed slightly at the Emperor's tone, there was something predatory in his seemingly casual interest. "A regrettable incident," Marcus said smoothly. "Captain Wilson acted to protect innocent lives but took care to avoid unnecessary loss of life or ships." "Yes, we noted that restraint," the Emperor replied. "It raises interesting questions about your species' capabilities and intentions." The diplomatic dance continued for hours. Imperial representatives questioned the humans extensively about Earth's government, military, population, and resources. Marcus answered carefully, revealing enough to establish goodwill but keeping many details vague. While the diplomatic team engaged with Imperial representatives, a different drama was unfolding aboard the Concordia. In the ship's secure communications center, Lieutenant Garcia noticed something unusual. "Captain, I'm detecting unauthorized access attempts in our computer network." The ship's captain, Laura Reed, immediately alerted the security team. "Source, the station," Garcia confirmed. "They're trying to be subtle, but they're definitely probing our systems." Reed's expression hardened. "Activate counterants. Let's see what they're after without alerting them that we're aware," she ordered. The security officer worked quickly. "They're targeting our technical specifications, weapon systems, and jump drive data, Imperial spies," Reed murmured. "Well, let's give them something to think about," she authorized a specific protocol designed for exactly this scenario. Rather than simply blocking the intrusion, the Concordia's defensive systems would present a carefully crafted false data set while simultaneously gathering information about the attackers. Back in the diplomatic chamber, the negotiations were proceeding when a commotion erupted at the entrance. An Imperial officer hurried in, his face showing alarm despite his training. "Your Majesty," he began, then hesitated, glancing at the human delegation. "Speak," the Emperor commanded. "Sire, the station's central computer system has initiated a total lockdown, all communication with other Imperial facilities is blocked, and security doors throughout the station have sealed," the officer reported. The Emperor's eyes narrowed as he turned to Marcus. "What is the meaning of this?" Marcus looked genuinely confused. "I have no idea what's happening, Your Majesty." Before anyone could respond, Captain Wilson's communication device chimed. He checked it, then cleared his throat. "It appears that someone from the station attempted to hack into the Concordia systems. Our defensive protocols activated automatically." "Defensive protocols," the Emperor repeated, his voice dangerously quiet. "Wilson, maintain a neutral expression. Standard security measures. Any unauthorized intrusion attempt triggers an automated response." In this case, it seems our systems interpreted the attack as coming from the station's main computer and isolated it to prevent further breaches. "Release my station immediately," the Emperor demanded. Marcus intervened smoothly. "Of course, Your Majesty, a simple misunderstanding." "Captain, please have your crew deactivate the defensive response." Wilson nodded and sent the command. Moments later, the Imperial officer confirmed that systems were returning to normal. The Emperor's face was unreadable, but the tension in the room was palpable. What should have been a simple diplomatic meeting had revealed an uncomfortable truth: the humans possessed technology that could neutralize Imperial systems without firing a shot. Later, as the Earth delegation returned to the Concordia, Marcus and Wilson spoke privately. "That could have gone better," Marcus said with a sigh. Wilson shook his head. "Actually, it went exactly as expected. They're testing us, trying to gauge our capabilities and weaknesses, and we just showed them that we can shut down their systems remotely." Marcus pointed out, "That's hardly going to make them feel secure about our peaceful intentions." "Perhaps," Wilson conceded, "but it also showed them that direct confrontation might be costlier than they anticipated." Their conversation was interrupted by Captain Reed. "Ambassador, Captain, we've received an urgent communication from Earth. Multiple human ships have been deployed to various border regions as a precautionary measure, and there are reports of unusual Imperial fleet movements near several key jump points." Marcus and Wilson exchanged glances. The diplomatic mission was supposed to prevent escalation, not provoke it. "It seems the real negotiations have just begun," Marcus said grimly. Outside the viewport, the massive Imperial station slowly receded as the Concordia prepared to depart, but both men knew this was just the beginning of humanity's complicated relationship with the Galactic Empire, a relationship now balanced precariously between diplomacy and the growing threat of conflict. In the Imperial Council chamber, silence reigned as Admiral Vex finished his presentation. 12 council members, representing the most powerful species within the Empire, sat around a massive table carved from the wood of an extinct tree. Emperor Revex Aex watched from his elevated seat, his golden fingers tapping slowly on the armrest of his throne. "So," the Emperor said finally, "you recommend a preemptive strike against this Earth?" Vex stood straight, his blue skin darkening with conviction. "Yes, Your Majesty, the human threat must be eliminated before they grow stronger. Their technology is advancing rapidly, and their ships have already appeared at multiple points along our borders, ships that have taken no hostile action," noted Councillor Mira, an elderly female with features like a terrestrial fox. "They observe, they map, and they withdraw when approached, gathering intelligence for future attacks," Vex insisted. "The Concordia incident proved they can disable our systems with ease. Next time, they might not be so merciful." The Emperor turned to his intelligence director. "What do we know about their home world?" The director, a small, gray-skinned being, activated a holographic display. Earth is the third planet in a system with one yellow star. Population, approximately 8 billion, industrialized, but until recently confined to their own planet. Their sudden technological leap is unexplained. Not unexplained, Vex interrupted. Hidden, they concealed their true capabilities until now. The Emperor considered this information carefully. Very well, authorization granted for Operation Containment. Assemble the fleet, Admiral, show these humans the true might of the Empire. Vex bowed deeply, satisfaction evident in his posture. The fleet will depart within 3 cycles, Your Majesty. If the humans truly wanted war, why demonstrate their capabilities without causing destruction? Why engage in diplomacy at all? The Emperor's vertical pupils narrowed. A valid concern, Counselor, but I cannot risk the safety of the Empire on philosophical questions. If the humans are truly peaceful, they will surrender when faced with overwhelming force, if not. He let the thought hang unfinished. Mira bowed and withdrew her concerns, unresolved. Captain James Wilson stood on the bridge of the Resolute, Earth's newest and most advanced warship at 500 meters long. It was considerably larger than the Defiance and incorporated all the lessons learned from their encounters with Imperial technology. Status report, he requested. Commander Roberts, who had followed him from the Defiance to this new assignment, checked her console. Captain, the other ships are in position and awaiting orders. Wilson nodded as he studied the tactical display. Earth's defense force consisted of just 7 ships, all that could be constructed in the limited time available. They faced an Imperial fleet of over 60 vessels, according to intelligence reports. The odds were not favorable. Any word from Ambassador Marcus? He asked. The diplomatic channel remains open, but the Empire has not responded to our latest communication, Roberts replied. It appears they've made their decision. Wilson's expression remained calm, but his eyes revealed his concern. Humanity had hoped for peaceful relations with the Galactic Empire. Instead, they faced an existential threat from a power that spanned thousands of worlds. Signal all ships, he ordered, execute Operation Shadow. Let's hope Director Bell's strategy works. The 7 Earth vessels moved into formation, then simultaneously activated their modified jump drives in flashes of controlled energy. They vanished from their positions near Earth. Admiral Vex stood proudly on the command deck of the inevitable Victory. 65 warships, representing the largest military force assembled in a century, moved in perfect formation toward the human solar system. Time to arrival? Vex asked. 2 hours to jump point, Admiral, his navigator responded. All ships, report ready for combat operations. Vex allowed himself a small smile. This will be my greatest achievement, the swift neutralization of a potential threat to Imperial stability. The humans have been clever, but cleverness alone cannot stand against the full might of the Empire. Send word to the Emperor, Operation Containment is proceeding as planned. The Imperial fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of Earth's solar system, weapons charged and shields at maximum. But the expected resistance did not materialize. No human ships challenged their arrival. Scans detect no defensive vessels or weapons platforms, reported the sensor officer. The approach to the inner system is clear. Vex frowned. This was too easy. Maintain alert status, deploy scout ships to verify these readings. The scouts reported the same findings. The solar system appeared undefended except for some primitive satellites and space stations near the 3rd planet. Could our intelligence be wrong? Perhaps they abandoned their home world after detecting our approach? Vex wondered aloud. Unlikely, Admiral, his tactical officer replied. We detect normal communication patterns and energy signatures from the planet, they are still there. Vex considered the situation, then made his decision. Proceed to Earth at combat speed. All ships, maintain formation and prepare for possible ambush. The Imperial fleet accelerated toward the inner system, weapons ready to neutralize any resistance. As they passed the orbit of the gas giant Jupiter, Vex felt increasingly uneasy about the lack of opposition. The humans had proven resourceful, their absence now was troubling. "Admiral," the urgent voice of his sensor officer broke the tense silence, energy signatures activating throughout the system, hundreds of them. Vex watched in alarm as the tactical display suddenly blossomed with new contacts. Small objects, previously dormant and virtually undetectable, were powering up in a carefully orchestrated sequence. "What are they?" he demanded, before his officer could answer. The effects became clear. Space itself seemed to warp around the Imperial ships, as gravitational distortions rippled across their path. Ship after ship reported drive failures as the carefully calibrated hyperspace engine struggled against the unexpected interference. "We're being immobilized," the tactical officer reported, his voice tight with disbelief. "These devices are generating localized gravity wells that disrupt our drive systems and weapons targeting." Within minutes, the mighty Imperial fleet hung motionless in space, unable to advance or retreat, their weapons rendered useless by the gravitational distortion. Vex stared at the display in disbelief. "How is this possible? Our intelligence indicated nothing about such technology." As if in answer to his question, a single human ship appeared directly ahead of the fleet. It was smaller than his flagship but sleek and clearly powerful. The vessel's design was unlike anything they had encountered before. The Admiral's communications officer said, "We're receiving a transmission from the human vessel, audio and visual." "Put it through," Vex ordered, his voice cold with anger. The main screen activated to show Captain Wilson standing calmly on the bridge of the Resolute. "Admiral Vex," Wilson began, "this is Captain James Wilson of Earth. I see you've encountered our gravitational defense network. I assure you, no permanent damage has been done to your vessels, the effect is temporary and completely reversible. This is an act of war." Vex snarled, "The Empire will not tolerate such aggression." Wilson's expression remained neutral. "On the contrary, Admiral, we have not fired a single shot. Your fleet entered our sovereign space with clear hostile intent. We have simply discouraged that approach." He paused, then continued, "Earth desires peaceful relations with the Empire, but we will not be conquered or intimidated. I am authorized to offer you a choice: withdraw your fleet, and we will deactivate the gravity net, or remain, and we will be forced to demonstrate additional defensive capabilities." Vex's four-fingered hands clenched into fists. "You cannot hope to stand against the full might of the Empire. Even if you disable this fleet, others will come." "Perhaps," Wilson acknowledged, "but consider the cost, Admiral, and consider what the other species within your empire might think when they learn that a handful of human ships and a network of automated platforms neutralized your finest fleet without bloodshed." For the first time in his long career, Admiral Vex found himself without a clear strategic option. "The humans have outmaneuvered me completely. I will convey your message to the Emperor," he said finally. Wilson nodded. "Well. Await his response." Resolute out, as the transmission ended, Vex gazed out at the stars surrounding his immobilized fleet. The Empire had ruled unchallenged for millennia. Now, a species from a single insignificant world had changed everything. The Imperial crisis had truly begun. The Emperor's personal vessel, the Imperial Glory, dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of Earth's solar system. Unlike the massive warships of the containment fleet, the Imperial Glory was designed for speed and elegance, its sleek lines reminiscent of ancient sea creatures from the Imperial homeworld. On the command deck, Emperor Revex Aex watched as his ship approached the immobilized fleet. It had been 2 standard weeks since Admiral Vex's failed attack, and the situation had only grown more complex. News of the Empire's defeat had spread throughout the galaxy, despite efforts to contain it. Already, 3 previously loyal systems have declared their independence, an aide reported. "Your Majesty," his aide said quietly, "the human ambassador is hailing us." The Emperor, he straightened his ceremonial robes, this unprecedented personal visit, the first time in 7 centuries that an emperor has left the Imperial core worlds, is a gamble, but the alternative is unthinkable. "Put him through," he commanded. Ambassador Marcus appeared on the screen, his expression respectful but not subservient. Emperor Revex, on behalf of Earth and all humanity, I welcome you to our solar system. We are honored by your personal attention to this matter. The Emperor nodded slightly. The situation demands my presence. Ambassador, I trust arrangements have been made for our meeting. Yes, Your Majesty. We have prepared neutral space aboard the station. You can see ahead that both your security team and ours have inspected it thoroughly. Very well, I shall arrive shortly. The Emperor ended the transmission and turned to his advisors. Remember, we are here to salvage imperial dignity and reach a workable agreement. The reports from our intelligence agents are clear, we cannot defeat these humans through conventional means. His advisors nodded solemnly. The revelation of human technological capabilities had shaken the imperial hierarchy to its core. The neutral station hung in space, halfway between the immobilized imperial fleet and Earth. Originally a research platform, it had been quickly modified to serve as a diplomatic venue. The central chamber was circular, with viewports looking out into the blackness of space. Earth was visible as a blue marble on one side, while the imperial fleet could be seen on the other, a constant reminder of the current situation. Captain Wilson stood at attention as Emperor Revex entered the chamber, followed by his delegation. The Emperor moved with natural grace, his golden skin gleaming under the station's lights. Ambassador Marcus stepped forward to make formal introductions. What followed was the most extraordinary diplomatic conference in Earth's history. For 3 days, human and imperial representatives discussed technology, territory, political structures, and the fundamental nature of galactic governance. On the final day, the Emperor requested a private meeting with just Wilson and Marcus. Your technology, the Emperor began once they were alone, follows a different path than ours. Explain this to me. Wilson and Marcus exchanged glances before Marcus answered, Your Imperial Majesty, human development has always emphasized efficiency and adaptability over raw power and scale. Our ships are smaller but more maneuverable, our weapons are precise rather than devastating. We value finesse over force, a philosophical difference, then, the Emperor mused in part. Wilson agreed, but also practical. Earth has limited resources compared to your vast empire, we had to do more with less. The Emperor's vertical pupils dilated slightly, a sign of interest. And this gravitational technology that has neutralized my fleet, it is an extension of our jump drive research, Wilson explained. We discovered that the same principles that allow faster-than-light travel can be used to create localized gravitational distortions. Impressive, the Emperor acknowledged, and more importantly, unexpected. The Empire has grown complacent in its power, we haven't faced a true technological challenge in millennia. He paused, studying the humans carefully. What do you want, Captain Wilson? Ambassador Marcus, what does Earth truly seek in this galaxy? Marcus leaned forward. Peace, Your Majesty, security for our world and its people, and the freedom to explore and trade. We have no desire for conquest or domination. And yet, the Emperor pointed out, you have effectively conquered my finest fleet without firing a shot. Defense is not conquest, Wilson replied. We acted to protect our world from what we perceived as an existential threat. The Emperor was silent for a long moment, then unexpectedly he smiled. You know, Captain, in all my centuries of rule, no one has ever outmaneuvered me so completely. It is, in fact, refreshing. On the final day of negotiations, representatives from a dozen worlds joined the conference. Some were imperial subjects who had long chafed under centralized rule, others were independent systems that had maintained uneasy relations with the Empire. All had been monitoring the unprecedented standoff between humans and Imperials. Ambassador Marcus presented Earth's proposal to the assembled delegates, a new framework for galactic relations, not an empire ruled by force but a community of worlds bound by mutual interest and respect.